Okay, the second flight had several problems. Here we go, auto mode. Again, just trying to test it after the rebuild to make sure it was where it was before. And this one really kind of scared me because off it goes. I did not expect that. I expected it to go to 100 feet like the Circle mission I just posted a few minutes ago. But in my earbud, I could hear that it had gotten to the waypoint at the corner of the field and was heading for the next waypoint. So I decided to hang out. Now, I'm not even sure most people can see the platform in the sky at this point because it's so high. 300 and something feet. I'll detail that more near the end when I go over my problems. On the Droid Planner, I can still see that it is on path. Really, really windy. Again, fighting all this in the wind. Yeah, I doubt many of you can technically see this platform in the air. Oh, for a camera person with a camera with a telephoto, video camera with a telephoto lens. They have to drag out my old Super 8 or got some kind of video camera upstairs, I forget. It's some high definition something, but it's as old as the hills and as big as a football shoebox. Yep, so just coming into the tree branch right now is the platform way up there. You can see it. It's coming below the other limb now, a little sticking out. It's getting ready to go into that limb. I'm going to have to step to the right to make sure it is. Not right. How about my left, my port? To make sure that it is still turning on the edge of the field as it should. And there it is. Going for another waypoint and now headed back with the wind down the field. I hope that maybe once I compile or render this video, the platform will be more apparent. I'm really sorry about the fact that you can't see it in this flight, and later we will see why, instead of using my old survey mission from a couple of weeks back that I did on this field to prove I basically could flip it into auto mode at any time I was in manual flight, and it would be a buddy box or a good pilot and go back to a known flight pattern while I recovered from any mistakes I had made. Just couldn't really see it in this video. GoPro camera. Actually, my next door neighbor can pick it out in every video that I show him. I don't know how he does that. I can see it dead center in the center of the screen right now, moving left to right. Actually, that seems to be a blemish on my screen. Somehow Charles can pick it out of a video, just, I don't know how he does it. He says I just look for the movement. Yeah, well, more power to you, Charles. Get my logo straightened out so I can go do some things. He's going to work on that opening logo video for me. He's a real pro. I'll make some business cards from that and then get on it. So basically this flight was much larger than my last survey mission, and as it started nearing the end of the waypoints, as 13 minutes came up on the radio and 14, I started getting more and more nervous about longevity of flight. I was already nervous about altitude, but it was staying at the same altitude. I could hear it in my earbud, so just gonna hang out with that, try to relax. A lot of this just has to be faith. You put it together right, it's doing correct. And as I get more and more hours, I'm more and more comfortable just doing that. I'm more and more comfortable now just going into manual mode. As hours and hours and hours build upon each other, God, it was like in the past 2 days I've flown the thing for over an hour. I wish I had a logbook. I guess I'm getting up over 50 to 100 hours at this point. Now the other thing that bothered me about this flight was the Mobius camera seemed to be working on the ground, but I didn't get flight video from the platform on this second flight today. Mobius was on when it returned to the ground, but the record light wasn't blinking. Now I made some corrections to it. I stepped back a couple of firmware versions because of problems with their most recent firmware, and I also changed the switch settings to where I have to hold down the button for an extended period of time for the video, for the camera to come on. I don't know if that really is true for the front button for the video, but I had a yellow light. I did exactly like I did in the first flight today. I pushed the front button and I had a blinking yellow light which says I am recording. I checked it and then I put it on the platform. Now then, this was because I had about 17 minutes worth of battery time on this particular setup. I went with a much larger mission with many more waypoints than on my last survey mission in this field. But one of my mistakes was, as it hit the last waypoint, I heard in my earbud, loiter. In other words, no return to launch. I'll have to add this return to launch. Actually, I already have. Since I've come back, I've added that to the return to launch. Reloaded the whole mission back into the platform to do it again tomorrow until I get it right. But as I heard loiter on the last waypoint, I was going, darn, and that's all the way over there on the other side of that field. So I flipped the return to launch button and And it worked perfectly. Brought the platform back across the field. We're not quite to that point yet. It's still flying waypoints. I'm just trying to detail some of my screw-ups. So, another one of my screw-ups was it came over, returned to launch, started coming down. I've got it set where it kind of falls pretty quickly until it gets about 20 to 30 feet above the ground. Then it goes into 30 centimeter per second landing mode. Don't use much current or battery when you're falling like that, but I want it to be a level fall because I found if you go too slow on those props, it can tumble when there are nothing. No limbs hit, no nothing. So then it got down near the ground, and I usually don't let it auto land. I'll usually flip it into stabilize mode for those last 2 seconds. Well, I made a mistake. I flipped off return to launch. And as soon as I did that, I heard going to waypoint 1, and you can see the platform takes off to do the mission again. And I'm going, wait a minute, I know I've got 17 minutes on the battery. Where am I at? Am I at 15, 16 minutes? Am I about to fall out of the sky? I don't want to crash this. So that was another little problem during this test flight. I flipped it back into stabilized mode and got her on the ground, no problem. Getting to where when events occur that are unusual, I'm so experienced now that I recognize what's going on. As soon as I heard going for waypoint 1 in my earbud, I knew it had gone back into auto mode, which is again one of the reasons I do this if I'm manual flying or whatever. There she comes. Return to launch. She's falling for the ground now. And zip. She says, I'm not going any closer that fast. I'm going to slow down to 30 centimeters per second. So this is about where I intended on going to the stabilize mode, and instead I flipped the RTL button off and zoom. Heading for waypoint 1. No. Back into stabilize mode. I haven't got my mid throttle quite correct. I actually had my throttle at 0 there. So I flipped it and stabilized. It started falling. I did catch it, and I did bring it over and land it. This is a straight up self-explanatory movie from DroneShare. I don't need to say much about this. You can see the wind is messing with it. Wind would be behind it now. Now it would be going into the wind. Going downwind. I think there were something like 19 waypoints. They're just at the corners. The path between each end of the field is just being flown by the drone. There would be 2 to make that corner there. I had them set 7 feet apart. And I sort of calculated it to give me about 15-minute flight. So I had a little bit of battery left. But again, you'll see soon that I made a mistake on the mission planning. Wasn't a killing mistake. We would have just had much better video from the GoPro on top of my head. And I'm going to change that Mobius back to turn on instantly instead of having to push the button for a time period. I'm not sure why. It's just been blinking when I set the craft down ready to go, but then doesn't take video. Coming up on my last corner, I do believe. And there she stopped and said loiter. So I flipped the return to launch. Here she is dropping down. She goes into the slow landing. And there she goes back for waypoint 1. There I am in stabilized, and I put her on the ground. Here is the mission as I set it up. You can see there was the 19th waypoint, and you also notice that there is not a return to launch command at the end. You will also notice that it was set to 328 feet altitude instead of 100 feet, where we could have seen it much more easily in the GoPro on top of my hat. So I added a return to launch to the bottom of this, and I'm going to set all those altitudes to 100 feet, and we're going to try it again early in the morning. If I get my batteries charged back and stuff tonight, I may try another one of those missions like I had the crash with last week, where I'm going to fly it where it's going to go out of sight and come back, and I have to be trusting that it will do it. Alright, thanks for watching. Have fun.